The road atlas didn't disappear overnight. It was there for almost 100 years, in every glove box, on every road trip, unfolded across the passenger seat on the way to wherever you were going. Heavy, spiral-bound, cover worn at the corners, states you drove through the most, dog-eared. The route your parents planned the night before, traced in yellow highlighter. It had a smell, ink and paper and something slightly metallic from the binding. You don't notice a smell until it's gone. And then, somewhere in the 2000s, the atlas stopped being in the car. Not because it was thrown away, just because it stopped being reached for. Most people don't remember when it happened, because it didn't happen all at once. Here is how it worked. The atlas was a large format book about the size of a newspaper, with every state on its own page or spread. Along the spine, an index of cities. In the back, a mileage chart. Your starting city in one column, your destination in another, and the number in the intersection told you how far. Trip planning happened the night before. You sat at the kitchen table with the atlas open and a yellow highlighter. You traced the route. You noted the exit numbers on a notepad. You looked at the whole shape of where you were going, not just the next turn, but the entire journey at once. In the car, the atlas belonged to the passenger. That was the job. You held it open on your lap. You followed the highlighted route with a finger. You called out the next exit before it arrived. Two people navigating together. One watching the road, one watching the map. And then someone tried to refold it, which everyone did, because road atlases were essentially impossible to refold correctly at 70 miles per hour on the interstate. You just did your best and hoped it would close. Most people think of the road atlas as something you bought. For most of the 20th century, it was something you received for free. In 1913, Gulf Oil opened the first drive-in gas station in Pittsburgh and handed out a free road map. The logic was simple. A map encourages you to drive more. More driving means more gasoline. Within a decade, nearly every major oil company had a map program. Texaco, Shell, Standard Oil, Sinclair. You pulled into a station, you filled the tank, and there on a rack near the register was a free map of wherever you were. You took one. You put it in the glove box. Every trip, every tank, every stop. 8 billion. Schools used them to teach geography. Children navigated from the back seat. The map was part of citizenship, a physical object that said, here is the country, here are the roads, here is where you are in relation to everything else. Then almost overnight, it stopped. The road atlas is older than most people expect. In 1789, a man named Christopher Cowles published the Survey of the Roads of the United States of America. 83 plates covering roads from Virginia to New York. It was subscription-based. Among the subscribers, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. It failed, because almost nobody needed a road map in 1789. Roads were rough tracks. Most trips were short, on local roads, by people who already knew the way. It took the automobile to change that. By 1904, Rand McNally had published its first automobile road map. By 1924, the Auto Chum appeared, the first edition of what would become the Rand McNally Road Atlas, still published every year a century later. The atlas and the automobile arrived together. One made the other necessary. And for the first time in American history, people needed to know where they were going before they left. The first thing that changed was the gasoline. In 1973, the Arab oil embargo sent fuel prices surging. The free road map, which cost about 20 cents to produce by then, was suddenly a luxury the industry didn't need. By the 1980s, most oil companies had stopped printing branded maps entirely. The racks at the gas stations went empty. And they stayed empty. If you wanted a map now, you paid for it. The casual pick one up and throw it in the glove box map was gone. The atlas held on for another 20 years. It was still in most family cars. But the first crack had appeared. Then came the internet. In the late 1990s, millions of people began navigating by printing a piece of paper. You typed your origin and destination into MapQuest. You hit print. You grabbed the stack of pages from the inkjet printer. Turn-by-turn directions in a font so small you had to lean over to read it. If you missed a turn, the page didn't know where you were. There was no recovery. It was strange. It was temporary. It lasted about a decade, and it meant that for the first time, most drivers had stopped looking at the whole map. They were just following a list of instructions. Rand McNally had survived everything. Founded in 1856, publishing road maps since 1904. 150 years of American history, and Rand McNally had been there for all of it. Then in 1997, the company was sold to private equity for a reported $500 million. The new owners planned to compete in digital mapping. They didn't. They fell behind MapQuest, accumulated debt, and in January 2003, Rand McNally filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The company that had invented the American Road Atlas was in financial restructuring within 7 years of the Internet's arrival. That same year, the GPS unit became the Christmas gift of the season. A small screen on the dashboard, a voice telling you where to turn, no map, no passenger holding anything. No prior planning required, just in 400 feet, turn right. Then in 2005, Google Maps launched, free, constantly updated, available to anyone with a browser. The iPhone arrived in 2007 with Google Maps built in. The case for carrying a paper atlas had essentially collapsed. GPS was better at the job, more accurate. Updated in real time, it recalculated when you made a wrong turn. The atlas couldn't do any of that. But there was something the atlas was doing that nobody noticed until it stopped. When you navigate with a map, you build a map in your head, not a sequence of instructions, an actual spatial model. You know which direction you're traveling. You know roughly where you are in the shape of the country. You could be dropped at any exit and have a working sense of your position. When you follow GPS turn by turn, that model never forms. You arrive, but you don't know where there is. London taxi drivers, required to memorize 25,000 streets for the knowledge exam, have measurably larger hippocampi than the general population. Spatial navigation physically changed their brains. The inverse question follows on its own. What is outsourcing navigation doing to ours? What changed wasn't just the navigation, what changed was the passenger. When you navigate with an atlas, the passenger has a job. They hold the map, they read the route, they watch for the exit before it appears. They are part of the journey in a way that requires something from them. When you navigate with GPS, the passenger is a passenger. The voice handles it. The screen handles it. You can talk or look at your own phone or watch the landscape. The car gets there regardless. That's not a complaint about GPS. It's a description of what was there before and what isn't there now. The late-night kitchen table, the atlas open, the highlighter, the argument about which route was faster, the family conference that happened the night before every long trip. Now you say the address out loud and the car starts navigating. Easier, faster, requires almost nothing from you. And that almost nothing is, somehow, the thing. What was lost is harder to name than what replaced it. You can describe the GPS. You can explain why everyone has one. The data all makes sense. The replacement wins on every measurable dimension. But the thing that was lost doesn't show up in any measurement. It was the act of knowing where you were. Not just your next turn. The whole picture. The shape of the country as you move through it. The town between two pages you'd never heard of before, that you wrote down to come back to someday. And here is what most people don't know. The Rand McNally Road Atlas is still in print. The 2026 edition just shipped, the 102nd year. Since 2021, Atlas and paper map sales have reportedly grown by more than 20%. GPS dead zones, flat phone batteries on long routes, and something harder to explain, a quiet desire to understand the whole journey, not just the next instruction. It didn't come back completely, it won't, but it came back a little. And that tells you something about what it was. The Road Atlas didn't disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because something faster arrived, and we took it without looking back. That trade made sense. It still makes sense. But there was a version of knowing where you were, where you held the whole journey in your hands before it started, that we gave up quietly without deciding to. If you remember a road atlas, the weight of it, the smell, the dog-eared state pages, the highlighter trace and the notepad with the exit numbers, leave a comment. Tell us where you were going. Tell us what route it was.